This story, I meant to get to this a few days ago. Glad I got to it now. It's kind of grisly and really, really stupid. The story, here it is on Daily Wire. Man Googled how to dispose of 115-pound woman's body. Now his 115-pound wife is missing. This is, you almost want to laugh at the headline, except you realize someone's been killed. You know, some guy murdered his wife here, it would seem. And it's a guy from Massachusetts who looked up how to dispose of this particular kind of body. And then his wife was supposed to take a ride share to the airport in Boston for New Year's Day. There's no record. She took the ride share. She never boarded the plane. And then she was reported missing by her workplace and her husband. And then when law enforcement searched the guy's computer, it says, how do you dispose of a 115-pound woman's body? Not really sad story. Not the brightest criminal in the world, it would seem. I guess he's innocent until proven guilty, but not looking good. Not looking good for the husband. The reason I bring up the story is not because it's of this local crime story, odd as it is, but it's because of what it tells us about one of the biggest issues in our politics, which is the surveillance state. We are increasingly living in a surveillance state, and that has been increasing for decades now. It's been increasing in the government sphere. You think of the NSA, formerly known as No Such Agency, which is just processing countless reams of all of our data constantly. But then you think of it in the private sphere as well. You think of private companies that now have access to what we search on the internet, private companies that have access to who we call, private companies that have access to cameras inside of our homes. It's just everywhere now. On our TVs very often have cameras. Our cars are spying on us to corporations. So we're living in this total surveillance state. And our first reaction to that is that this is very bad. And it is bad because it's giving bad people undue power. It's giving frequently very bad actors leverage over us and control over our lives. There is a silver lining, though. You know, on this show, I try to have a little silver lining. I don't really get angry and pull my hair out and say the world is ending all that much. I try to look for the hope here because I think that's a theological fact and a requirement of our lives. So here's the silver lining. The surveillance state can keep you on the straight and narrow. It can. People don't want to hear it, but it's true. If you knew, I mean, this is how a lot of those anti-porn apps work. I think it was Matt Fradd, really great podcaster, was talking about this, that you get, if you want to quit porn, if you have an addiction to porn, you get some of these apps and services that basically whenever you look at a porn website, it just emails whoever you tell it to email. So it can be a buddy, it could be your wife, it could be, and so it's a voluntary kind of surveillance. But if you know, voluntary or not, if you know that every single thing that you type into your computer is going to be seen by somebody else, you're probably not going to go to that naughty website that you want to go to. Now, you might, if you're living in China, say, and you know all your searches are going to be seen by the government, you're also probably not going to Google things like democracy or how to lead a political revolution or things like that. But even just in our personal lives, if we know that somebody is watching, we're probably going to be a little better behaved. If you see a camera in a store, you're probably going to be a little loath to rob that store, unless you're in San Francisco where it's just a complete free-for-all. If you are in your home even or in your workplace, surveillance can make you behave a little bit better. The reason that this is happening now is, one, there's been the technological advances in surveillance, but there's a cultural reason too. And it gets back to one of these statements that John Adams said in the early days of our country. He said, a statement frequently quoted by conservatives, that the country is built for a moral and religious people. It's not fit for the government of any other kind of people. That the American expression of political liberty and relative privacy is built for people who are going to control themselves and rein in their basest passions. The country is built for people who believe that God is watching them at all times and they better not step too far out of line. As that belief has declined in the United States, you have seen an increase in other kinds of surveillance, police surveillance, in private surveillance, in surveillance by your teachers and your professors and your bosses and everybody else. As people don't fear God watching us, we are going to need Big Brother to watch us. This is something I've said always as an addendum to the John Adams quote about the moral and religious people, which is, there will be order. There must be order and peace in society. That is what government does, is to maintain that. That is what political communities are largely for. If people will not order their own lives, someone is going to come in and order our lives for us. But don't mistake it. The people that control the country, the powers that be, will not allow things to spiral out of control. Even when those powers are we the people, even when it's us in representative assemblies. If our government really were still to work as the bill up on Capitol Hill and all the rest of it, we would not allow anarchism. You're seeing this in some of the blue cities where crime has gotten completely out of control. People are stepping up and saying, we don't want this stuff anymore, okay? Impose some control. Right now, head on over to expressvpn.com/Michael Knowles Show. It is extremely important to protect your online privacy with a VPN. Choosing a VPN that you trust is just as important. The only VPN that I trust is ExpressVPN. These guys have been with the show almost since the very beginning, I think. It's so easy. I'm basically a Luddite. It's super easy to you just download the apps right there on your computer, on your phone, on your tablet, whatever you want. Click one button, you are protected. ExpressVPN does not log your online activity. They've even developed a trusted server technology that makes it impossible for their servers to store any data at all. Number two, the speed. ExpressVPN does not slow down your user experience. You can even stream HD videos with zero buffering. Number three, ExpressVPN is super easy to use. You just click those buttons and you're good, you're protected. It's not just me saying this. Business Insider, The Verge, many other tech journals rate ExpressVPN the #1 VPN in the world. Protect yourself with a VPN I trust. Use my link, expressvpn.com/Michael Knowles Show. Today, get 3 months free on a 1-year package. That's expressvpn.com/Michael Knowles Show. expressvpn.com/Michael Knowles Show. Now, speaking of Big Brother and the nanny state, is a story that seems a little bit murky, and the government is trying to kind of deny this. The Consumer Product Safety Commission has threatened to take away your gas stove. Of all the problems facing the country, completely open border, potential world war breaking out in Eastern Europe, you've got biggest drug epidemic ever in American history, declining life expectancy, all of these problems, the government is really focused on what matters, which is keeping you from using a gas stove to make your eggs in the morning. Yeah, you've got to use an electric stove now. That was the threat from the Consumer Product Safety Commission. This came out, people pushed back against it. Even some Democrats came out. Joe Manchin was interviewed about this. He said, this is insane. Stop trying to ban gas stoves, you weirdos, that's fine. So then the government came out and said, no, we're not actually threatening to ban the gas stoves. Here is the Consumer Product Safety Commissioner threatening this just back in December.
I think we need to be talking about regulating gas stoves, whether that's drastically improving emissions or banning gas stoves entirely. And I think we ought to keep that possibility of a ban in mind as you follow along, because it's a powerful tool in our toolbox and it's a real possibility here.
No thanks. No thank you. How did this guy? One, if you cook at all, you know gas stoves are just much nicer to cook on. If you have the privilege of having a gas stove, I've had electric and I've had gas at different times. Gas is way, way better. But how did this guy muster the gumption to say, yeah, we're taking your stove away? Yeah, why? Because I said so. Because I, some petty bureaucrat, said so. Because we have a culture now where we have infantilized ourselves and we've given up so much of our right and our spines and in some cases other body parts thanks to the transgender movement. We've given this away. We no longer have a clear vision of virtue and our rights and our place in society. We can't even defend, many people in this country can't even defend the most basic right in the society. And as we give those things away, then the people who are going to impose the order that we previously would have, fearing God, are going to be petty bureaucrats like the guy who's trying to take your stove.